On this worksheet, we're seeing a chart that's called a Gantt chart. It's not one of Excel's standard charts, and it actually is a stacked bar chart. And as we look at this, it doesn't quite look that way, but envision that there's a bar to the left here that we've hidden in each of these cases except the first. You don't know that instinctively as you look at this, but these are relatively easy to set up. There is an oddity about how we work with dates that you'll run into, and we'll show you how to do this. Let's actually create one of these. Before beginning the process of creating the chart, let's look at the data. The contractor has indicated the tasks that need to be done, and he or she knows about the fact that some of these tasks overlap or can overlap one another. We see that clearly in the results here. So we've been given a starting date for each of the tasks and also how long it takes to complete that task in terms of working days. But we have to make an adjustment here. If the dirt work starts on January 4th and it takes 20 days, quick thought as well, that's going to be finished on January 24th, right? Well, the contractors don't work on Saturdays and Sundays, so we have to come up with a completion date, an adjusted date. And we can do this pretty easily by way of a function called workday. The workday function says, I've got a starting date. Here it is, January 4th. Let's count how many days later this task will finish, but let's not count Saturdays and Sundays. That's what workday does. It also has an option, by the way, to refer to another list that contains holidays, and it wouldn't be counting those either. But we're not doing that in this example. So we're just counting all the days except Saturdays and Sundays, so the task will actually be completed on February 1st. So this is the starting date. This is the ending date. How much time does it take from start to end? 28 days simply by subtracting. That's the number we're seeing in the chart. And when you're looking at the chart, you want to be careful to say, it's not a 28-day task, but it takes 28 days from the beginning until the end, because we're not working on those Saturdays and Sundays. So if we were creating a chart, we'd want to show this data here. And since I'm about to put this into a chart, I'll let go of the left mouse button, hold down the control key, and also highlight this data. This is the data we want to see in a chart. So zooming back, how would we create this? And at first, it's going to be a disappointment. Let's say you've been told or you've heard that this will be a stacked bar chart. So the data is highlighted. We could approach it in a couple of different ways. Let's go to Insert, possibly by way of recommended charts. We might see it in our previews. We don't. How about going to All Charts? Here's bar. Got some options in there. How about stacked bar? Well, some options, but neither of those seem to fit. So it looks like we can't quite get there. Could we cancel this and go back to Insert and try it this way by way of the drop arrow for column and bar? Try that here. Same thing's going to happen. Now, here's what's a little bit strange. If we display these dates right now as dates, we could not create the chart properly. However, if we go to the Home tab and convert the display of those, now not the content, but the display into general format, we see these numbers. And those of you who work with dates probably know each date has a value, a number. Going back to January 1st, 1900, each day has its own separate number. If we use these entries now, let's highlight these, and using the control key, highlight these. Let's go back to the Insert tab, take a look at recommended charts again. In our list here, scrolling up and down, we do see an option. Not so obvious at first, but this one, I'll click it once so we can see it larger to the right. This looks like it's getting close to what we want. We will be hiding the blue portion of the bars there. Click OK. So we're getting there. I'll make this a bit larger. It'll overlap the other chart in the background. We don't want the blue here. I'll simply double-click one of the blue bars. All of them are selected. And off to the right here, using the Fill and Line bucket, I'm going to choose No Fill. That means no color. The blue disappears. And for the border here, no line. That doesn't happen instantly. There it is. Click on the chart. Now we don't see them. Now, I'm going to scroll to the right a little bit. Let's focus on the chart more. The other thing we want to change is the way the numbers appear across the bottom. That certainly isn't readable. So I'm going to go change the data here back to a standard display of dates. And one quick way to do this, by way of the Home tab, in the number group right here, click the drop arrow. How about short date? Now we see some dates across the bottom. Now, although not critical, the order here that we see is upside down compared with the other order. I think probably it's a little bit better to have the tasks beginning at the top and moving rightward and downward. But if you want to go this order, nothing wrong with this. If you want to flip this upside down, simply double-click the y-axis where the text is. That activates the Format Axis dialog box to the right. And clicking on the Axis Options, and then going to Axis Options, sliding down a bit, we will see eventually Categories in reverse order. And it does that. Now, once again, showing more of the chart here. The date begins September 3rd, and yet our project is beginning January of 2016. So let's readjust the date range here. Once again, this is an axis adjustment. Simply by double-clicking one of the dates here, we can change the minimum off to the right. And I'm just going to put in somewhat arbitrarily 1/1/16. January 1st, 2016. And the maximum looks like it goes to about mid-June. Actually, the numbers we're seeing up there right now look okay for now. That's good enough. We might make an adjustment there. Another thing we could do, and not critical, we can make the bars thicker, or expressed differently, or make the gap between the bars be tighter, simply by double-clicking one of the columns here. Off to the right, the dialog box. We can go to the button on the right, Series Options, Gap Width. Let's change it to 20, 50, something like that. And we can see what happens. Again, that's not critical, but I think you can see how, I think for some people that's going to make it easier to read. The other thing we might want to consider doing is changing the actual display of the dates here. Once again, double-clicking the titles here, off to the right, choosing Axis Options, Number, and farther down the list. Instead of this type of date entry, we might want to choose something like one of the shorter entries here, March. This would indicate the year here, but we might want to do something like 14 MAR. That approach, we see the entries that way. That's good enough since we know it's all within the same year. And one other entry here to make the chart more readable, in addition to the title, is to put data labels in here. And perhaps we can get to that most easily by clicking the plus to the right of the chart. Data labels, possibly what we see there looks good enough. The dates are here off to the side. We could click one of those. I don't think we need those. Press delete. And again, some other considerations to make changes with here. Now, it doesn't look exactly like the chart in the background. The colors are different. We can certainly change that. But the main idea here is the fact that this is a stacked bar chart. We had to do some manipulation to get here. It wasn't ultimately that difficult. And possibly look for in the future maybe a built-in capability to create Gantt charts. But as you saw, the steps here were not that unusual, except for that one oddity of initially having to change these dates into values and work with them, then change them back after the chart was created. So a Gantt chart, nothing other than a particular kind of variation on a stacked bar chart.